Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining for another Mantrailing Spaniels webinar with me and Joleen Carter from Carter's Pet Services. Tonight we've got our fantastic guest, fellow Mantrailing instructor Natasha Filler from Poodaroo, follow the nose, who's down in Surrey. We're quickly going to introduce ourselves for those of you that haven't had the opportunity to do some training with us or haven't been stalking us over on the Spaniel group. I'm Kathryn Jones. I run Training Canines. I'm in North Wales, and I'm lucky enough to travel most of the UK teaching Mantrailing to everybody. I've got 2 Springer Spaniels, or 3 really technically, that I do Mantrailing with. And I'm lucky enough to have had Springer for the past 10 years, either as Mantrailing dogs, pets, or detection dogs. So I love my Spaniels, and I was looking at them today thinking definitely need a 4th. It would matchy a little bit better to have 4 liver Spaniels, as my other half gives me evils. Yeah, we have Spaniel Addict over here. I'm going to hand you over to Joleen.
Hi everyone, I'm Joleen. I run Carter's Pet Services, and I've done that for the past 17 years, but I've been a Mantrailing enthusiast for about 5 and then an instructor for about 3, and I'm based in the Midlands, in Birmingham, hence the accent, which hopefully isn't too strong. I flipped to the dark side of Spaniels only about 3 years ago, really. Coming from German Shepherds, mainly because I didn't want to be dragged around by a big dog, and then I'm now dragged around by a small dog instead. So nothing really changed there. And I've got 2.5 Spaniels, I'd say, because I don't think you can count the little one as anything just yet. So we'll see.
Oh. Super. Natasha, if you want to introduce yourself and then tell us all about your kind of background and how you got started in Mantrailing as well with your Mantrailing Spaniels.
Hi there, I'm Natasha and I run Poodaroo Follow the Nose. I've been a Mantrailing enthusiast probably 4.5 years now, and an instructor for about 3, I think now. And I started with a poodle and soon went to the dark side of Spaniels. I've had Spaniels in my life since I was tiny. And yeah, they just crept back in, and now I have 3. Yeah, and again, like Joleen, I get dragged around the countryside by what was meant to be a smaller dog that actually weighs more than my poodle.
Yeah, see? It seems like the theme.
Yeah, it seems like a good thing to do at the time until you do it, and then you go, why did I do that? And yes, Kathryn, you do need a 4th Spaniel.
I'm working on it.
So how I got into Mantrailing with Quill, I rehomed him at 10 weeks old. He was a working line Spaniel that went into a pet home, and luckily they realised that he was a little bit much quite early on. He came into my life, was meant to be my detection dog. So I started him quickly into Mantrailing the second he could go on the ground. Introduced him slowly to Mantrailing, and he quickly became a machine. He loves it. And yeah, I've spent many an hour being dragged behind him. He quickly showed me that he wasn't particularly interested in becoming an operational scent dog. So that went out the window, and the Mantrailing properly took off. And then at 6 months old, we went into gundog stuff. He took to that like duck to water. And sort of the rest with him was history. Mantrailing and gundog work became his thing. And it took a while for me to realise that they weren't quite gonna hit the journey together as nicely as I thought they would. While we kept everything low key, it was all good. And he was managing to do both really well. But the second I started to ask him questions and test us as a team. So going into single blinds and things like that, it soon got a bit tricky. He'd learnt to critter and man trail at the same time, which became great fun, trying to work out which one we was doing. And yeah, I did try to do my level 2 with Kathryn, and he took us on a bit of a wild goose chase, potentially about 500 meters in the wrong direction, following air massively. And neither me or Kathryn knew what we were doing. We were just behind a spaniel going, well, he's pretending to work.
It was one of the most interesting trails I've ever watched, because I'm like, he's trailing, but he's also gundogging, and he's trying to quarter into what he thinks is the trail, but it isn't the trail. Yeah. It's where blown scent is, and it was the weirdest thing to watch in the world. And when we dissected it, we were like, oh, he's being too smart. He's mixing the two and thinks he's awesome.
Yeah.
And that double blindness just really showed it.
Yeah.
It was a learning moment for everybody, that one.
Very massive. Yeah, that was a biggest turning point in my man trailing career with him. That made me go, yeah, spaniels are really different to trail. And I really sat down and dissected, and I videoed a hell of a lot of trails with him. And I trailed with a lot more experienced people, whether they be spaniel or not, and went right back to basics, blue line trails. So I really understood what he was telling me, and I could be a lot clearer to him what I wanted out of him, that actually this sport is separate to the one where you get to be independent from me and do your thing. Because that's the joy with gun dogs. With spaniels, they have amazing noses, and if you get the training right, they are really independent from the handler, and they don't have to worry about us. They just work their scent how they are bred to, and they have got no one following them or slowing them down, and they get their reward and come back. Obviously, when they're trying to pull someone through brambles, it makes it a little bit more difficult for them, and we can influence them. So that becomes a little bit complicated for them. The way I started Quill's his gun dog career, I wanted him completely as an all-round gun dog. My plan was just to work him and have fun. So because he was a big rangy boy, I did lots of long distances, lots of long retrieves, which helped with his independence in man trailing, in the fact that he was quite happy to work at the end of a line away from me, and he didn't care whether I followed him or not. He was quite committed to his scent. But being that he was doing that kind of work, slightly more retriever Labrador based stuff, because I was pushing him away from me, that encouraged his air scenting a lot, which, as I just explained, got us into lots of trouble, because he didn't really ever check into the ground too much. He had his head up, because a lot of his rewards from the other training that we did was from him air scenting into his retrieves. So that caused a little bit of an issue. And then vice versa with the man trailing and doing our gun dog stuff. If anyone placed anything out in a hunt area for him to hunt onto, or just placed a retrieve out, he never really used the gun dog side of his brain. His man trailing brain would kick in, and his nose would go down, and he would just trail human scent until it stopped, and then he'd hunt, and there you go, there was the dummy. So yeah, they can help each other, but they can also hinder each other, and especially for gun dog trainers that have no clue about man trailing. And as man trailing is really quite a new sport, not many gun dog people will know about man trailing, and most gun dog people do gun dogs. They don't do anything else, and they don't think their dog should do anything else. because gundog is life, which for some people that's fine, but for other people they want to do more. So it
I think on the flip side of that as well, is that a lot of Mantrailing people don't understand how gundog works either.
Yeah.
Like a lot of Mantrailing instructors, I can hand my heart and say that I understand that gundogs what their job is, but I've never been involved in their training, and it never occurred to me that, well, obviously when we teach them to trail people, that they're going to trail to where they walk the dummy out to.
Yeah.
Of course they are, because they're going to use different things. So it's it works both ways. Because they're very different sports from each other, the people they attract are generally different, unless you get mad spaniel people that have to do everything.
And just for purposes for myself and everyone on the webinar, like, so when we're talking about you doing your gundog stuff, this is like professional gundog stuff, isn't it? It's not gundog for sport, Natasha, like sort of a pet gundog class, or
yeah. So lots of gundog stuff now. It's still, so the pet classes still give you all the obedience and all the other stuff that everybody likes to see. But yeah, so Quill is trained to go out and work, so he beats regularly throughout the season. And I also train him to do competitions. He unfortunately can't compete because he's not KC registered, but he does lots of charity tests. And yeah, he has like a criteria to go to with gundog stuff. So out working, generally it's a little bit more relaxed as long as they stick to certain rules, which is basically don't chase the birds, don't eat the birds, don't run off, and stick close. But within the competition side of things, you have, like with everything, there's a rule book to stick to, and you are judged for what your dog does. So it's not just a bit of fun. So, and he does a lot of training. I mean, we probably gundog about 5 to 6 days a week. He does some kind of formal gundog training. And there is different forms of gundog training as well. Like I said, he was a little bit more general purpose, which is a lot of what a lot of pet gundog people do. So it's a combination of retrieves and a little bit of hunting, but with obedience of heel work and everything else. He now does quite specific spaniel training, which is all about hunting to find the bird and flush them, with a lot shorter retrieves. So for a spaniel, if they do more specific spaniel training, that is better than for Mantrailing than doing the more Labrador stuff, because they generally have to have their nose in the undergrowth down on the ground, because that's where their birds are. If they had their head up in the air, they would miss birds in the undergrowth. So that's the difference between pet and slightly more spaniel specific training, and for competition and quite heavy working.
yeah, I just wanted to clarify, because obviously when we're talking about with you tonight, you actively work and you actively beat. It is beating, isn't it, that you do?
Yeah.
So it's talking about that professionally, and then like talking about how, like, we started off with the two differences, and like you said, like, so him getting his crossed wires in the two jobs and swapping over and things like that. So it's just, I want to just clarify for everybody, because like I've done some gundog stuff, but it's just been pet stuff, and then like, so what I could do with somebody is going to probably be completely different. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew what we were talking about.
And I definitely going down, if you are already a gundog person that has a dog that's trained to a fair level in gundog, it's easier for you to go into Mantrailing than it is the other way around. I found with some things with Quill, being a Mantrailing dog first, it's not made gundog harder or not made him a good gundog. It's just I've come across hurdles that I've had to go away and think about how to solve the training problem, because the gundog trainers are not quite sure what to do, because they don't quite understand the whole point of Mantrailing. So I found it easier, and my other two spaniels are doing their gun dogs training first, getting to a level that I know they know exactly what they're doing before I'm putting them into man trailing.
Yeah, I think it's sort of good because I think quite a few people come to me, and especially with younger dogs, and they're predominantly not always aware of what they want to do with their dog, but they just try quite a few activities to then potentially see what the dog chooses.
Yeah.
Whereas, like you said, that like you've had some issues with Quill air scenting quite a bit, which although like sort of we like dogs can air scent and ground scent, your level 2 sort of went awry because of the wind's really unpredictable, isn't it? So, and then like the crittering, so it's definitely that body language, isn't it? Watching when the dog's switching, when the dog's searching for something that's not a potential trail, and going forward. I'm just wondering, do anyone in the group, if you can put in the chat, do you do any gun dog work? And if you do, is it pet or what do you call it, professional, or what's the term?
Just working.
Working
Competition.
That's it, yeah. So pop it in the chat group.
Yeah, fun or competition.
Yeah, just so we can gauge what people do with their dogs on here, and if they've encountered any problems and stuff. So was there anything else that you noticed with Quill when you done his training? Because you said that you potentially
so I've spent
the other way around, didn't you?
I've spent a long time back with his man trailing. We went after the hiccup with the level 2, we went right back to basics again. So however much he was capable of smashing out single blinds, we went right back, and I spent a long time doing like the blue line trails, knowing exactly where my trail layer had gone every single time, so I could micro read him and be able to wait for certain behaviors. He's always been quite committed to his trails, so I've never had to worry too much with his confidence. So I've been lucky in the fact that I can wait out for that particular behavior that I know I would like to see when he's positive on a trail. So instead of just going, oh, well, he's gone the right way, so I'm just going to follow him, I sort of sit there and wait for the nose to drop. So I know that he's definitely 100% taking ground scent. So I've taught him now that I want him to follow the ground scent, but still use the air scent to help him out. So now when he lifts his head and looks in a certain direction and he does it multiple times, I potentially know that his trail layer is to the left or the right. But I want him to be committed to what's as close to the ground as possible, wherever it's landed, so that I've got a clear understanding that he understands that today we're man trailing. So we have to have our nose down, not go, oh, well, they're over there, I'm going to take you through 6-foot brambles, because that is the other thing. When you've got a spaniel that you've taught to go through really, really thick cover, they don't care whether you're behind them or not. There could be a pretty much solid wall of brambles and they're determined to go through it. So I want him, I don't want to knock his confidence in saying that he's wrong. So I just wait for him to give me the behavior I want to follow, and use air scent to help him, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's I think it just depends on sort of, it's interesting that with the two separate jobs you can clearly see behavior from the dogs that can help you like on either.
And I mean,
especially with the air scenting.
Yeah, it's quite handy as well with the gun dog. His behavior when he gets into proximity is exactly the same. So when I stand and watch him hunting either to flush a pheasant or when we're sweeping to pick pheasants, his body language is exactly the same when he's in proximity scent of his trail layer. So that's quite a nice thing to see, because you get caught up in the moment when you're right behind. You're trying not to fall over. You try not to let the line slip right through your hand. There's a lot going through your brain, let alone looking at your dog's behaviour. But when they're doing the gun dog stuff, you're sat back, you're not being pulled over, and you can really observe their body language. And I've noticed the two are really, really similar when he gets into proximity of scent, which is really handy, because then I know to brace even harder, because he'll pull me really hard when he's in proximity.
I think, yeah, that's the key thing as well, is like, so even if we're talking about gun dog work today and Mantrailing, I observe my dogs a lot when I'm out just in open fields, and I watch how they just hunt scent, because that just gives me a real good like observation of the body and what the body's doing. And especially if you can get them to sort of go up a hill or up a slope in front of you, you can watch them quartering back and forth and watch the body language. So how high is the nose from the ground, what's the tail doing, sort of then when the head comes up and stuff. So I'm always an advocate for just observing your dog outside of the activity, because the closer you get to the dog, we all know the closer you get to the dog, the less you see. And while you're trailing as well, like you said, you can't you can't do everything, and you're concentrating so hard to try and see that body language change, aren't you? That it's just difficult in the moment, and it's just over in a flash. Like, isn't it? Your trail's just over in a flash. Sometimes you get you do your trail and it's just a couple of minutes and you're done, and you're like, oh, I don't know. So, is there any other tips that you would suggest for other people in terms of how the body language has helped with you, the air scenting?
A big one that I come across with a lot of my other my Mantrailing clients that have got Spaniels as well, some of them mistake strong pulling as an indication. I generally find, unless you see your proximity body language, strong pulling generally means that they're probably trying to find any scent to work on. A big one with Quill is his breathing. If he's got erratic breathing, where he's breathing in and out really, really quickly, you can see his ribs moving, you can generally hear him, he sounds like a steam train, he's off scent. He's hunting for something else, anything just to please me, because that's the element, I think, with a lot of Spaniels. Scenting is rewarding in itself for them, and generally most Spaniels want to please the person behind them. That's what they're bred for. They're bred to be biddable. They're bred to want to please the person that's working with them. So they'll do anything to do what we reward them by following. So extra strong pulling, erratic breathing is definitely ones to look out for going, I think we might have gone wrong. And another thing that I've learned is, and I say it to lots of my clients, it's not failing, it's just more information. So if you do learn what your dog's body language is, and they give you that body language and you follow it, and then they go, sorry, that's not you failed, that's just more information. You go backwards, back to there, and generally they'll go, sorry, whoops, and then they crack on. And as soon as I learned that, I had a much happier Mantrailing journey with Quill. I spent a lot of many trails thinking I was useless, we had gone completely wrong in our journey, that I shouldn't be Mantrailing. And the second that twigged in my brain, everything went, actually, none of our trails are rubbish. I'm just learning more body language, and he's learning that he can trust me, because if he gives me the body language I've asked for, which is nose down and everything else, that I'll follow him. And if he gets wrong, I don't go, and sigh, we just crack on. And then we get that less, because he knows and I get less strong pulling sometimes, and I can nearly man train like a normal person. And actually not miss junctions and things because he's not pulling me and making my arms like Mr. Tickle.
Yeah, it's so the key thing for me is for spaniels is they just naturally hunt, and I think it's a bit irrespective sometimes of what they're hunting for, because it's whatever's rewarding. And so key things for me that I find with some clients that have come is finding the right reward, and we've had somebody pop in the chat as well, because the trail itself. Oh, have you got a nice glass of prosecco there?
No, raspberry vodka.
Oh, check him out. Very nice.
I know.
Here's me with my measly Coke.
I have good clients. It was my Christmas present.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, so for me, when I have people who work their dogs in gun dogs, sometimes the main things that stick out for me that they have trouble with is the equipment. So the wearing of a harness, and stuff like that. Is there any tips that you could give to somebody that has a dog that beats or flushes or whatever, and then they want to come and try? My thing is usually to get them accustomed to the equipment before they come to a session, so that they can make it.
Yeah, so getting them accustomed to the equipment. My big thing I have to say to a lot of the gun dog people is leave the gun dog world at the door. This is a completely different sport. We're not particularly prim and proper. The dog doesn't have to have an obedience. It's just here to have fun. So please don't shout at your dog. Please don't make it sit. So yeah, get accustomed to the harnesses and stuff, and yeah, don't be stingy with your reward, because your gun dog has learnt that being a gun dog is rewarding. So this is a whole different kettle of fish and could be quite confusing. So yeah, don't be stingy. Whack out that whole packet of mini sausages and a whole tube of Premier cheese, because that's what will get your dog interested in finding a person and not the rabbit that walked across the path half an hour ago.
Yeah, and finding the reward, I'm sure Kathryn will probably chip in as well, but the reward is like the top thing, really. It's the holy grail, and it's not often what we think it's going to be. Like, my dog the other day had children's chicken casserole, venison pate, and do you know this? Is it called scraps from the chip shop? You know, the little
If you ever hide for Joleen, it's always like whatever's appeared in the cupboard. We've had spaghetti hoops, alphabet, whatever's been reduced in, like the kids, like this. If you open her pot, you're like, what is this? Her dogs never know what they're going to
bolognese, chips.
You know, she just opens the
when
fridge
I'm
and
hungry,
goes, yeah, go for it. The reward for like spaniels, whether they gun dog work or not, is like, because using their nose is so rewarding for them. A lot of people, I'm sure a lot of you would be like, pipe up, oh yeah, my dog doesn't go into the trail layer, it ignores them, or it carries on trailing, because the end of the game is not fun. And even if that person's got like magic gold, what that dog might like, it doesn't matter if they would normally use that rewarding training, like on a recall, yes, Sprat's a queen and the dogs love it. In Mantrailing, they're like, yeah, but on recall, I get to recall 1,000 times and then I might go on the lead. Mantrailing, I know when I find that person, the game's end. And like with gun dog work, the dog gets to repeatedly do the action of going out and retrieving something. They might have to sit in between, but the sit isn't half an hour in a car. It's 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. So you will different because the cycle spaniels are high addiction breeds, the high dopamine breeds, high adrenaline breeds, and when they find that person, they know adrenaline's going to drop. So fiddling around with your reward, getting your trail layer to run around, cocktail sausages in the head, in the air, at the head, can be like one of those things. So they become like something fun to retrieve, something to evolve, sometimes the toys that the dogs can destroy, like the clamshells and the lotus balls or whatever bloody animal or flower they are.
Somebody said a pheasant.
Yeah.
We've got quite a few comments in
the
chat, and somebody said a pheasant. So when we get a chance, I'll start reading some of them. I think if I could have somebody that lets a bird off at the end, River would be amazing. Like, so if somebody could just, as soon as she gets in, she sits. If they just let a bird up, that would be her favourite reward. Or cat poo. Probably.
I think the trail layer might prefer the bird over the cat
because
poo.
it's nice for you know, and person might could just say full rabbit pelt and poor love Fred. Really Fred wasn't but you know, sometimes the trail layers aren't always on board. But like my spaniel, so both my springers won't eat mantrailing. They'll take food, but it's not rewarding to them. It's all about like killing the prey, tuggy at the end, destroying something, being manic. But I mean, they've never done any gundog training in their life. They're from gundog lines, but they've never done any gundog training. Maybe I should, because the puppy's particularly wild at the moment. But it's really tweak with spaniels your reward, and regardless of what other training you do, whether you do ingredients and work, whatever, have a different reward. Have something that is like fun. It's not just a pot full of food. It's something that has longevity in it, that's playing around, playing with the toy, that's keeping that adrenaline high at the end of the game, because otherwise they're gonna dismiss the trail layer every time, because it's the end of the game is really punishing to a spaniel, because all they want to do is search, and quite often you'll like do an easy trail to sort something out or whatever, and they're like, yeah, this trail's not long enough, it's not complex enough, I'm going to do another 5 minutes of sniffing before I come back to that trail layer. If you throw just a random curveball of trail at them that's really hard, they get there and they're like, yeah, I found you. Woof, I've worked my brain enough. They need to do. I'm not saying go out and do hundreds of hard trails, but understand that their reward often comes from the fact of doing hard work. And that's why spaniels will do a day of beating every day for the season and not stop. It's because their brain goes, we like this. Oh, it's addiction. It's the same as a gambling addiction. They know they just need to do it. And we facilitate it because we're like, yeah, it's pissing down the rain. Go on, go for flushing birds for me. I'll throw myself in that bramble patch.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I do lots of things for my spaniel clients, and I do with Quill, slow release food. So there's that. Oh, it's not. So if Quill has a whole pot of sausages just in a pot and it's gone, he's like, oh. And actually, his intensity trail, he generally will go, and walk straight past. Even if they're right in front of him, no other option, he will push past them and go, no. But he really likes licking the Premier cheese out of the Premier cheese pot, and nice and slowly, or I'll put peanut butter on a lid. So there's that element of he has to work still for his reward. So he's worked to get the reward, and then when he gets the reward, he's still working for it. And as a lot of my clients know, Quill gives you the cheese look as you're dispensing Premier cheese in his face, and he literally stares into your soul and makes you question your life choices massively. He could be a therapist, I swear he could. He would make you divulge all your deepest secrets when he gets to you. But yeah, if he was just to get a pot of food that he could take in one mouthful, he is not bothered. He needs to get his reward difficultly, if that makes sense. He won't tug. He's never tugged. Even before I wanted him, I got him in a gundog world, he just wouldn't tug. He's got a super soft mouth, and the second there's any pressure on his toy, he won't take it. And I've tried to bring in the toy after his food reward to make everything even more rewarding, but he's just not interested. So his reward, I'm lucky enough only on my sessions. And when I do stuff, I actually let him off, and we walk where it's safe to. We walk back to the vehicle with him off lead, so he can go off and sniff and do all the things that he probably wanted to do while we were trailing, but had all the self-control not to do. So again, he's not reactive. He's a good boy. He doesn't run off. So I know he's safe to have close to me off lead. And that, again, is his reward for doing it. He gets to potter around in the wood and doing all the sniffing and all the crittering that he probably wanted to do on the way there. And I find that really important, not just for spaniels, for lots of dogs that may have confident issues as well. That if you know that actually they desperately wanted to do a displacement sniff or displacement wee, that actually all the way back to the car, they're allowed to sniff and spend that time just chilling out, sniffing on the way back, because you've asked them not to do it, and they've had all that self-control not to, but they can have the reward on the way back. And then I generally find that they want to do it less when you've asked them to work.
That's interesting, because I've got to do the same with one of my dogs, River. But for her, I have to be really clear. So I've done a number of things that probably I shouldn't have done to start with. So I was a bit lazy. I used to pre-harness her. Then I never used to take the harness off. She'd stay in harness all the time, and like bits and pieces like that. So there was never any clarification as to when she was allowed to sniff and displacement sniff and when she wasn't. And then it crept in on the trails, because for her there was no cue as to when she was working and needed to focus on the job and when she wasn't. So I had to literally strip that right back. So come out of the car, no harness on, she had to get dressed. Then she'd go to work, and then I'd do exactly the same as you. And like, I'm quite lucky that she doesn't really go very far, but she was then allowed to hunt, or we'd play games for a hunty toy in the woods and stuff. And if she wasn't allowed off lead, she walks back on the long line, and I just take the harness off. It's on her collar and stuff, but yeah, she gets that free time to smell everything or to investigate all those animal smells that she probably would have wanted to on the way down. And that was a real big key changer for me. So I always now, especially with a spaniel, harness on and harness off at the start and at the end of the job for me, because otherwise it's a bit blurred lines, is what I see a lot of the time.
Yeah, I have a few clients that their spaniels are still quite busy and still haven't quite got it, still getting out the car. Oh my god, we're mantrailing. And I still do with my puppies. So they are pre-harnessed, because trying to wrangle a spaniel into a harness is quite hard. But I use like a snood or a buff, so there is a real clear thing still going over the head, and that coming off. So they've still got the harness on. If they can take the harness off at the end, because I know some struggle with also, like, as we know, spaniels don't really like heel or loose lead. So if they can take the harness off at the end, because then they can wrangle their spaniel back in the harness when they're back at the car. But some do come out pre-harnessed because of that exact reason, and then I make them put their buff on. So there's still an item going on, because there's nothing worse than breaking that spaniel's concentration when you're trying to wrangle them into a harness at the beginning of your ritual.
Yeah, and the one thing I find is if I get somebody coming that's done gundog and works their dog, is that they like their scent inventory to be to heel.
Yes, I am a great one. Give your dog a nose, give your dog its nose, let it sniff. It's not obedience. It doesn't need to work to heel. It's not going to break your heel work. Don't panic. And I've had a few gundog people that, especially at the beginning when they're doing intensity, and obviously their trail layers were running off, and they go mark, and I'm like, it's not a pheasant, it's a person. We do not particularly want your dog watching them. They're not marking it, so just shush. I find lots of gundog people like to say a little bit too much, so I generally tell them to shut up.
Yeah, but to be fair, like, a lot of people talk. I was teaching detection today, and it was exactly the same as Kathryn said. I've got one dog that had low confidence And today he knew where all the hides was, but decided that the searching was more rewarding than the find. And basically just did amazing searching, like you couldn't fault him, but his body language gave it away clearly where the hides were. And then he'd just spend another couple of seconds, like a minute or so, searching around, and then he'd look at his owner and go, oh, all right. And then he'd tootle off and find the hide and indicate. So he's like, he was feeling on form today, and he was just like, no, I'm not finished yet. So it's just really fun, like, to see it in different sports as well, where the trailing or the search or the hunt, whatever you want to call it, especially in spaniels, turns out to be more rewarding than what we're potentially offering at that time, and it can happen quite quickly.
I think we continually underestimate what our dogs find rewarding, and what our dogs enjoy. Yeah, they absolutely enjoy mantrailing. Yeah, they enjoy scent work. Yeah, they do. But I tell you what, I think your spaniel most enjoys running around like a headless chicken on a field looking for that pheasant that was there 15 minutes ago. It doesn't matter that it's gone. It's just the hunting of being a spanner that's not on a lead, that's not being screamed at to come back, that's not got anybody bothering it. Like people like to be sat in a hot tub with champagne under the stars, just vegetating, depending on that. And I think we underestimate that massively because we're giving them something to do. We're tapping into their natural behavior by doing gundog training or scent work training or mantrailing. But all of those are still jobs at the end of the day to those dogs. Regardless of how much you sugarcoat it, it's still a job for them. They love it. I'm not saying they don't. I'm not like, oh my God, just let your dog run free. That's not what I'm saying. But don't underestimate, just sometimes being a dog is the best thing for your dog. And they find, like, you know, we get as much addiction as they do out of the sports and things, but sometimes it's, you got to look at what you perceive as rewarding. Like, I would like to give £1,000 for no reason. My dog doesn't give a shit unless they rip it up. Jane would quite happily spend an hour ripping that. If it was in fivers, she'd be well happy with a little spaniel. That would be rewarding for her, ripping it up. It's not got no monetary value to it. The same as at the end of a trail, if I could just let her off around the woods, that would be the best reward in the world for her. Secondary to that is having a play, and then after that is food. So, and I can't give her the go and chase a pheasant, but I can give her the tuggy, but I can give her go and chase a pheasant a different day, much to the horror of the gamekeepers that live opposite me.
Yeah, because you can look at the hierarchy of reward as well, though, can't you? So you can have what your dog's going to be going for the most. So what's your dog's ultimate goal? And then you can look at what's the next tier down, and then what's the next tier down from that. So, like, my guys, River would definitely be animal. Like, if she could go after an animal, that would be her ultimate goal. But what I have to do is like rabbit balls and play. That seems to get her more motivated. She's also food orientated, so I think that would probably be a close second. And then it's like obviously the reward value. So like venison pate would be more rewarding than cheese and stuff like that. So you can always look at the hierarchy of reward as well. And I've done this a couple of times, that if you've got so multiple dog toys, ideally you don't want the dogs to have any kind of value to them already. Place them out onto an area and just let your dog go into them and choose and pick which one. And you've probably also seen some people do those food platters as well. Now, to be fair, they wouldn't work in my house because I've got a couple of dogs that would be choosy and a couple of dogs that just absolutely hoover the whole thing up and knock the tray everywhere, and there'd be food all over the shop. But with the toys, it seems to work quite well. And then you can just see what your dog would actually choose, whether it would be a tennis ball, whether it would be a rabbit ball, whether it would be a tug, a football, like stuff like that, really. And that's a really good one. And then just playing with the value as well. So obviously, if your trailing's going really, really well and it's potentially an easy trail, you'd want to have a really good reward. But then your reward could be something massively different if you have to trail by a load of sheep. Does that make sense? Like, so yeah. I'd have to party loads harder with River if I needed her to ignore a dog or a neighbouring field with cattle, because the same reward isn't going to be just a good girl and a pot of food at the end isn't really going to cut it. So I think each trail sort of probably going to be different too. And I think sometimes we get a bit complacent with trying to sort of just have like, oh, well, I've bought sardines today and that's what the dog's going to have. And we get a little bit of a, yay, good girl, blah, blah, blah. But that walk back to the car could be spent engaging like the whole way. Like I know we tend to, as instructors, give you that feedback and stuff at the back of the car, but I will often engage with my dogs all the way. Like we'll play tug all the way back to the car, all the way back to the car, and then they get to keep their toy in the car. They get to take it like a possession, really. And that also sort of does quite well with, like, so my Spaniel's a bit guardy, not with other people, but with only the dogs here. So she quite likes that Golemy, it's my precious, oh, I've got it. And that parading. So for her, like the interaction with me all the way back, and then she gets to keep it, like that's she likes that. And that works well.
Yeah, I don't think shouldn't underestimate how much most of the Spaniels want the reward from their handler too. So just you having a party, not just a pot of food, you standing behind them going, oh my God, you're amazing. And if they like touch and stroking and scratching, and, you know, Quill gets me having a party behind him, massive, like, because he absolutely adores butt scratches, loads of butt scratches, harness off, oh, you're amazing, aren't you amazing? And actually that's helps for the reward that's coming from your trail layer be even more rewarding, because the person behind me that means everything to me is having a massive party and is super happy as well. And I find it is a 50-50 mix, but a lot of the Spaniels I work with absolutely adore having a party. And the fact that everybody's like, oh my God, you're amazing, aren't you beautiful? Quill will roll over in his belly and have his belly scratched and all that. So it's just making sure that when your Spaniel has got and done exactly what you want to do, trailed nicely to their trail layer and is engaged with the trail layer, that you don't just stand there and go, oh, aren't you a good boy? Have a party with them, tell them that they're incredible, so that they know that everything is amazing when it happens at the trail layer.
Because like a lot of the ones that I see just want to please.
Yeah,
they just want to please their handler, don't they?
Yeah.
And whereas we want the trail layer to get involved and stuff like that, ultimately the dog has the bond with you. So we want the connection, like you said, with the trail layer, but ultimately the dog has the bond with you, and it's you that they predominantly want to please, unless they're feral like mine and they just want to please themselves and run off. That's always the odd one.
So
cool.
Natasha, now you know about mantrailing, you know about gundog work, and you've gone and got 2 more Spaniels since Quill, because you feel addiction. Like I feel like us 3 are like a real problem together.
I'm not having any more.
If you could do it again, so obviously are more for trials. They've been bought more specifically to do gundog stuff. But when you introduce trailing, what's going to be your plan? Are you going to do, how would you plan it now, knowing what you know, to avoid too many issues gundog trailing, too many issues mandog trailing, and kind of advice to those people that are maybe thinking of doing both side by side? What would be the kind of advice to get it right first off the bat, knowing that the mantrailing instructor might not be super spaniely gundog knowledgeable, and the gundog trainer probably doesn't know about mantrailing either? So what would be the kind of advice for people?
Take it slow. Take it slow. It's really easy to go get a little bit ego, big-headed, oh my God, my dog's amazing, and skip a few of the foundations, and just push it. Let's just see. So the next dog that will be coming, the Spaniel of mine that will be coming into mantrailing, is my rehome Snipe. He's a complicated soul. So it would be even more different. But yeah, it will be charging a reward, not pushing it too far, really making sure and being really strict. I'll probably be the worst person, because it's really important that your trail layer gets it right. Spaniels, that's the one thing I would say that is very different within Spaniels. A lot of Spaniels trail very, very similarly, but for starts, I find a real mixture. Some need to be hyped up massively, and they'll stand there and they'll be internally excited. There'll be nothing on the outside. There'll be a vacant expression, but inside they are really excited. And there'll be others that the second you shake a pot and you say their name, their brain will explode. Their brain will leave their head and they will not have any comprehension of what you're about to ask them. So I will be really strict with my trail layers, and I will use the right trail layers at the beginning. And I know not everyone has that joy of being able to understand their dog right from the beginning and be able to influence what trail layers they have. But if you know your dog really well already, and you're going into Mantrailing understanding your dog and understanding that actually they're quite fizzy, I would be really not strict but firm with the person that you're going to go Mantrailing with, and say, this dog will lose its head if anybody does a squeaky voice, runs off with their arms above their head going, because it's just counterproductive. So be sure that you know your dog. If you don't know your dog, go on the tentative side of life over, yes, get them really excited. It'll be great. And lots of blue lines, lots of knowing exactly where your trail layer's gone. So using the app if possible, or your instructor taking your trail layer out so they know exactly what route they've taken. Buying a good pair of gloves and taking it as slow as you can, because if you skip a step with a spaniel, it ends up being quite a big step, because they'll do quite well for a while until it doesn't go well, and then you go, I don't know where it went wrong, and you have to go right back to the beginning, which is quite demoralizing for you. The dog doesn't care because it's great fun and it's having fun, but for you it can get quite demoralizing. So yeah, as slow as you can possibly dare. I would rather spend a year doing really boring trails for me, which are not boring for the dog, but are boring for me, and then make a massive leap, than go after a month, wow, I can do 600 meters now, and then 2 weeks later go, now it's all gone wrong, which is a little bit what I did with Quill. I did lots of foundations to start with when he was really, really young, and he got quite good. And I went, let's just give it a go. And he rose to the challenge, and he rose to the challenge, and he rose to the challenge until he didn't. And I went, I don't know where this has gone wrong. And someone very knowledgeable asked me a question, and I went, I don't know. And they went, well, maybe you should have known that before you did this trail. And I'm like, maybe that would have been a good idea. So yeah, and be strong in yourself. You know your dog, so don't let anyone tell you anything different. And if it doesn't sit right with you, don't do it. It's quite simple. That's one of my biggest things I say to my clients that potentially trail with different people, or ask people outside of sessions to go hiding for them, which I don't advocate, is if it doesn't sit right with you, don't do it, because you know your dog and you are your dog's voice and you advocate for your dog.
So if we're sort of talking about sort of advocate for your dog, things like that, we want to be looking at definitely putting in the foundations. And I mean, we're sort of both, I'm happy to say, sort of both as a handler and also as an instructor, we spot a dog that's got a natural ability, and we want to we're also on the side of wanting to please the handler. So sometimes we would look at pushing the dog a little bit further. And it's fine, like, because the Spaniels have got that natural ability, they rise to the challenge, like you said, and achieve it. But then further down the line, you just meet a plateau. Or you've missed a big chunk of something. And inevitably, as much as when we have the dogs coming to us, we're teaching them to find people, we want to also remember that we're learning to communicate. We're learning to communicate with our dog and read their body language, isn't it? This is the only time that they sort of take the lead, really, unless it's you do scent work and scent detection. Like, we want the dogs to take the lead, and we have to do a lot of the learning. And if we were to look at it that way and set our trails up so that we learn, I don't actually think we'd push the dogs that far that quickly, because we don't learn as quick as the dogs learn. Because inevitably, I think as a handler, we have a lot more to learn than the dogs do. A lot of the dogs find it naturally, don't they? They get their reward. They're like a couple of sessions, they're following human scent. You do some junctions, they're learning turns, things like that. But we have to digest all those body language little tells, all those little, like the head flicks, the eyes going, like you said, the breathing. I mean, I, for one, have had one instructor tell me, oh, it's in the breathing, it's in the breathing. I'm 3 years in, I still can't get the breathing. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I love the information and I really take everything on board, but hands up, I can't see that dog breathing.
Well, if it's anything like my Spaniel, we're holding on to grim death, and it's not breathing because it's going as it's working. So, you know, it's Spaniels are the hardest breed because they are the quickest to get it. They are one of the fastest breeds, and they've already thought about it, done it, are on the next task before you've realised what's happening 20 paces behind them.
Yeah. And they already know, if you've got a really smart one that happens to trail in a regular group, they already know who's gone missing, because they've gone, well, she's missing, so I don't need to take scent from that scent article because I know who's missing.
They trail from the car.
Yeah. They go, right, whoever is gone is not here, which means, and she was here a minute ago. So she's missing. That's her scent article. I know what she smells like. I don't need to take scent. She's gone that way.
Yeah. We've seen it. We've seen it a lot of times. It's
absolutely.
We have to, as instructors and handlers, I think we need to be like 20 steps thought process in front of the dog. What could this Spaniel potentially think when it gets out of the car? And you need to think of that before it's done it, because once it's done it, you're screwed.
Yeah, having a plan with a Spaniel is mega important. And actually, I'm not bashing different instructors and different knowledge, but if your instructor doesn't understand Spaniels, can't tell you about them, and you're looking at them, they're like, yeah, it's just because he's just a Spaniel, that's why they do it, and they kind of blame it on the breed. They might be the most local instructor, but they might not be the instructor that's going to help you achieve what you want. And that goes for gun dog trainers as well. There's lots of brilliant gun dog trainers that can train a pointer but can't train a Spaniel, can train a Labrador. You know, we all have our breed knowledge. I can train a Spaniel. I can give me a high drive Malinois, give me something off its tits any day of the week. Give me a hound and I am bored shitless and I can't do anything with it. I don't understand them. I don't get it. My brain doesn't compute a hound, and it's not very good on sight hounds either, like line race dogs. But give me something that wants to like kill me, or give me something that wants to chase a squirrel up a tree, fine. And find the instructors that work for you and stick with the instructors that are going, your dog's about to do this. Or did you just spot that? Thank God I caught it on film because it was super quick. and it's nothing against instructors at all. There's loads of really, really cool people out there that everybody's got good knowledge, but not everybody's got spaniel knowledge. And it's like one day someone said to me, "Oh yeah, all dogs trail in the same way. I don't know why you do breed specific stuff." And I just went, "What? You have clearly never trained a spaniel, because a spaniel ain't a shepherd, ain't a staffy, ain't a pointer, ain't a flat coat, ain't a Labrador. It's a spaniel isn't like a cocker spaniel isn't the same as a Springer spaniel.
And that's the thing. Like, we're not just talking about sort of spaniels in general. It's like not all Springers are going to trail the same. I'm sure there's some people probably on here that are thinking about listening to us being dragged through bushes, and they've probably got a really nice spaniel that trails quite steadily. I've got one late. Barbara's shaking her head there, so I'm hoping she's got one.
If they've got that spaniel, could I please have it?
Yeah.
But I've seen like some spaniels. It's not very often, but I see some spaniels that are quite like steady and like nice and methodical. But you can almost see them think and stuff like that. Now I can see my rescue dog Reef think, because he's a bit dim, so like everything you can really read on him quite well, but he works at speed. So that's like the bit of an issue for me then trying to take it on board. But the other thing about sort of like Kathryn said is work with people that know the breed, or reach out to, if you have a local instructor, and say, have you seen this? What do you think of this body language? Like, it might not be intentional. We want to reach out to everybody and give everybody this knowledge. So it's not saying, oh, stick with somebody that trails with spaniels because they know it. It's like they just maybe just haven't seen it, or they haven't come across the information, or have you seen, like, reach out to them and say, look, I had this webinar, have you listened to it? It's about my spaniel. Or after it, did you see this? But if you've seen something on your trail, did you see this body language? What do you think this body language could mean? And just like, for me, it's all about conversation. The more that we talk about this stuff, the more we look and observe, don't we? And the more we all learn. And it's just, for me, I want to really reach out to everybody and like get everyone learning and just learn as much as we possibly can. Like, I've got some clients that come to me and they go, oh, do you reckon this is for that and that's for that? And I'm like, right, it could be this, or it could be that, or it could be this. Like, sometimes you can't put a definitive on it because we just don't know. There's not enough information out there in the world right now to give us the black and white of why a spaniel does this, why a coonhound does this, why, like, we're all still learning about how the dogs process scent. So for me, with my clients, I go, it could be X, Y, and Z. So let's test that theory. Let's set up a trail like this, and then that will give us that answer. Or let's observe that dog doing this in so many ways, and then we should know if that body language equals this, if that makes sense.
Yep.
It's about data, like collecting data. It sounds really geeky and really boring, but it's literally data, isn't it? If you do 5 intensity trails with junctions and the dog picks the junctions correctly on 3 but then doesn't on 2, you want to be looking at what happened in the setup. Was it wind? Was it critter? Was it something else? It's just all about data and collecting that body language and observing and going, right, my dog has a head flick at a junction. When the trail's gone down to the left, it head flicks to the left before it takes it. And if you do that 5 or 10 times and the dog shows the same body language, then that could potentially mean that. But it's just, yeah, it's all about reaching out to people and getting, that's why we put these webinars on for free as well, though, isn't it? It's just getting as much information out there as possible. We've got loads of questions in the chat box. Shall we do questions?
Yep. Let's do questions. So yes, guys, if you want any questions, start typing. But we are going to just whiz back. A lot of people telling us really cool things. This is ace. I love it. So, oh God, my thing keeps whizzing off. So quite a few of you actually do work your spaniels as well as do mantrailing, which is awesome. Actually, proper on shoots as well. I love that we got an American cocker on here as well. I've not ever seen one of those trail yet. I'd love to, because they're just like little superb dogs. I know. Rosa beats in the commercial shooter Mantrails. I know Amy, and Rosa's a little super dog. Did a few pet dog classes. My oldest American cocker, but really started trailing, very confident man trailing, which is awesome. No previous to my second American cocker, but always nervous and less confident. You might find that man trailing helps that confidence, because it's nice, good choices for that spanner. Ember's put, we do gundog fun work with Theo. He multitasks on trails, air center, and crittering while following the trail. We're making progress on him separating the two and actually trail when he's supposed to be. Yeah, well, even if you hadn't done gundog training, it's still oh look, they're multitasking. And my older spaniel is a gundog though, and though we haven't tried man trailing for fear of him dragging me down through a bush.
Well, she says through those 6-foot walls of brambles.
Yeah. So the thing whizzed off. So yeah, it might go, oh no, forget about the trail there. There's a pheasant in this bush. Thanks, guys. Yeah, can't say they wouldn't do that. We've all been there.
Even for me, I want, when situations like that occur, you want the dog to go, oh, there's that distraction, but hang on a minute, I'm doing a job and this means more to me than that. And that can be quite hard, especially with a spaniel, and especially if you've got an environmental spaniel. So whenever we're working with a dog that gets distracted, I quite like that dog to sort of have a moment to think without us nagging it with a leave or a passive help on trails and stuff, because you want the dog to go, actually I'm doing this, and they want to return to it, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah,
mine's just thing. Hang on.
Okay. Questions keep whizzing off. Oh my god.
Jill said she beats regularly with T2 and have only done an intro Mantrailing session, would like to do more. Would it be best to find a trainer that works, Natasha? Before coming to me, he was going to be an explosive sniffer dog, but wouldn't work far enough from the handler. I'm not sure if that would help or hinder.
I don't think it matters whether you've got a trainer that works a gun dog. If they understand spaniels, they understand spaniels. And if they understand how scent works, and then you'll be all right to start. And not working far enough away from your handler, that's a fairly easy one to start to rectify once the dog has understood the game.
I'd be interested to know I would be suggesting just finding out as much history you can about how far they got into explosive detection dog training. Not because they're going to suddenly indicate on explosives, but because explosive detection dogs need to be fairly methodical, and they want them to do set patterns and things. And if they get to a certain point, they will be pattern trained. I should imagine it was just that a dog it's probably very early stages. That dog might switch to like canvassing areas or searching smaller areas, because that's just learned behavior with it. But yeah, like Natasha said, you don't necessarily need a trainer that's got shit tons of gun dog knowledge. They just need to understand your spaniel's not the same as the Labrador sat next to it.
Yeah.
I'd also say like ex-working dogs as well, like the criteria for a lot of the particular jobs means that quite a few dogs are binned quite quickly. So I wouldn't sort of take that as saving grace. Get the dog into the game and liking the game, and I'm sure that dog actually exceed, because it's, so I would definitely get it booked in. Jane says that's Natasha, encouraging him to do a particular behaviour rather than you having to read him, fingers crossed. Not sure if Jane wants to digress on that. I'm sure that was probably...
that was referral to Natasha when she was like waiting for Quill to nose to come down, rather than just like blindly following the spaniel into the abyss of the woods.
Yeah, there's something I wouldn't do unless your spaniel was really confident, and they knew that they were close to the trail layer. If your spaniel is at that point where it's like, oh, I'm not really sure, you're not following me yet, oh, is it that way, you're not ready to wait for that. And you should be. Where I waited for his behavior is I knew he was committed to staying on scent. I knew he wouldn't turn around and go, oh, well, because you're not following me, that must be the wrong way. I didn't do it then. I waited until he was properly committed to scent before I went, well, actually, I'd really like you to pop your nose down for me. So I knew you were bang on trail. It's not something I did at the beginning of his journey by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, and it's like, if you need to get the dog to put its nose down, there's techniques and ways that you can do it, isn't there?
Yeah.
So,
and that's the reason I had to wait for him to do that, is because I had a little bit of an interesting start to our journey, and I had blindly followed him into the abyss. So if you start your journey correctly, in a way so you're slower, you haven't pushed, you haven't missed foundations, then you probably won't need to wait for that behavior, because that behavior will naturally be there. I blindly followed him into abyss a few too many times, and he thought that was the right thing to do.
yeah. And like, also you can lay trails, can't you, to encourage, because it's the wind, isn't it? So if you lay trails appropriately where the wind is to the benefit of that dog, you can look at keeping the head down.
Yeah.
The head normally comes up to do with the wind or vegetation. So and then also aging the trail, because fresh trails, it means that our scent cells are going to be up and in the air. They don't have those time to settle. So if you're running a lot of fresh trails as well, the dog's head will be lifting it. But
Yeah.
Amy says that she has a working gun dog first, and he was a working gun dog first, and that's why she bred him. He's a picking up and beating. She says she's chosen to not trail him during the shooting season. His trailing goes to pot.
Yeah, I don't trail. I generally don't get time, but I don't trail Quill during the shoot season either. I generally find it gets a little bit frustrating. So he will start his trailing again February, and we will trail a lot through the summer. But yeah, generally October comes, and unless it's just come out for a bit of fun, and literally, I mean a bit of fun, I'm talking like 150 meter, 200 meter trail, that's fairly simple. He doesn't trail through the shoot season.
Yeah, the other thing we need to sort of take on board, and I'm not sure if Kathryn would agree with this, is that dogs need to settle as well on the trail. So if you're doing short trails, like they can sometimes need 100 meters, 150 meters to settle in to the trail and get rid of that fizziness. So that can also hinder them too. Susan says, we just do mantrailing, but flushing pheasants is a favourite hobby of her cockers. She also sniffs out wildlife when trailing and can multitask. Oh, this sounds like she's related to River, I think. Interesting if there is a pattern of body language to tell whether following human or critter scent.
I mean, if you can tell us.
I observe a bit like Joleen. I observe my spaniels when they're out walking, and I can just about tell, only because obviously I spend a lot of time behind them when they're trying to flush pheasants. I can generally tell if they're on a pheasant, or if they're on a deer, or if they're on something furry. But that is a whole new level of geeky nerdiness. So it takes a lot of concentration and a lot of observing. So general normal, you generally can't tell. It's quite quick. Spaniels are quite good at disguising critter to human. But if you want to be geeky and nerdy and intently watch your dogs when you're out for a walk, you can learn different animals that they start crittering.
Videoing is
if
one
you
of the top tips as well, like video and look back. Sorry, Joleen, interrupted you there. Video and look back. And the only thing I've ever noticed is there's a slight intensity change when it becomes critter. The dogs, we go, "Ooh, it's a squirrel," and I might get it. But that can be as much as the tail goes from wagging 15 times per second to 17 times per second. Like, it's so subtle, and you just have to kind of hop in on the energy a little bit and be like, dogs got a little bit more excited. Okay, probably not proximity, because I can't see anybody, or there's unlikely to be a trail layer here. It's more than likely going to be a squirrel. Oh, yep, there goes the squirrel. And it's intensity change, the only thing I've consistently seen when a dog is switching into frittering or tail carriage, but it's video, continue videoing, and look back and just try and pop in on like little bits of body language. Right. Sorry, Joleen. That was my 2 pence on it.
That's right. I was going to also say, if you haven't already, please watch the Spaniel webinar number 2, because we discuss crittering, proximity and hunting, and how the behaviour is quite similar. So if you haven't watched that one, we'll pop the link up to the YouTube pages and those webinars there. So that might be worth you having a little look at there. Back to hunting trails after we started working towards level 2, as she started searching rather than trailing. She's doing really well again now. So yeah, level 2s seem to really throw a scupper. So we're talking about Mantrailing assessments. I have a view on it.
I have not redone my level 2 with Quill, and I will not be.
I'm not, so I will eventually do it, but only because the thing has changed. But the one thing that I think your spaniel does not need is the availability to hunt when it's nowhere near the trail.
Yep. I don't like
double blinds can really throw you off.
Yeah, I don't like double blinds. He, as Kathryn will know, he is more than capable of absolutely smashing his level 2, but double blinds give me heart palpitations. He does not need my gibbering wreck of a being behind him, so I will lock him up, so there's no point. So I just went, I don't need a badge for that. I would much rather have my sanity and know that I could actually do it than actually go and crap it up for my dog again.
I think obviously, like, reiteration that when we do these webinars, they are aimed at sports dogs, and when we're working sports dogs, we're not looking for loads of failure. There will be failure, we can learn from failure, but we don't want that dog to do what usually happens at level 2 is 30 minutes solid of hoping they find the trail, hunting, because we fall apart before we started because the word assessments appeared and we all fucking fell apart in the car and had an aneurysm, and the dogs hunted, and then we don't know, and then we got in the dog's face, and then we pulled it off the trail, and we put it on the trail, and we got involved with double blind. And spaniels, because they keep working and they look like they're trailing, and we lose our heads immediately and they pick up on our energy, those double blinds are what cause the biggest issue in us as a handler and our spaniels. And I can hold my hand on heart and say I utterly regret doing my level 2 double blind, because it gave me a lot of learning as a spaniel owner, and it's fun, and yeah, okay, Captain had a blast, but equally I did so many things wrong, and Captain did nothing but hunt like an idiot for 30 minutes straight because he didn't understand why I was so stressed. So he did spaniel things because spaniel things make him happy. And I utterly regret it, because unfortunately Captain's now injured himself and he can no longer trail. And one of the last trails he did was me following him around like a tit doing his level 2. And yeah, I did pass it, but it wasn't passed because Captain followed the trail the whole way. It was passed because Captain found bits of the trail and law of averages took effect. So, you know, the goal with a spaniel is to have fun, is to learn to read it, is to enjoy it. It's not to test it to the point where you go home and go, yeah, we've done a level 2. It's the most stressful thing I've done in my life. I'd rather go back to school and sit an exam. So yeah, and you know, it's what we're talking about in these webinars. While the information is obviously applicable to whatever you decide to do with your spaniel, we're talking about it from a sports perspective. And at the end of the day, we shouldn't be testing our dogs that regularly, but we should be training them all the time. But that's my 2 pence on it.
That's the thing, isn't it? Knowing when you're testing and knowing when you're training.
Yes, absolutely.
And like, we can probably do another webinar on that, to be honest, because I think a lot of the time we test too much and don't train.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to fall into that category too. I've done it. So when we were saying like testing, it would be if you're doing single blinds and you're not really getting much help from the instructor. And often we move people onto single blinds because you assist the dogs quite quickly. So then effectively we're testing the dog when we're doing that, when we're referring to what we know single blinds or blue line training, where everybody knows where the trail is. That is training. Anything where somebody doesn't know is testing. So when the double blinds come into equation and nobody knows where it is, like if your dog has a natural ability to hunt, yes, there's probably quite a few people that are going to stay true to tail and the dog goes really well, but then some people are going to go off track and that spaniel's just going to go, oh, it might just be down here, oh, it might just be down here, oh, it might just be a bit further, because that is their natural, that is what they're bred to do naturally.
Yeah.
Carly has said, Russell, 18 months old, is from a striking line, took him to an intro mantrailing session, no interest in food as high reward, although found the person easily. Is there an alternative to food reward, a pheasant? And she's done a winking emoji. I think we might have covered that because we did talk rewards, but if we haven't, Carly, please let us know. Then Emma has said, Theo has no interest in food, but he loves a tennis ball, though it has to be thrown. If the trail layer just hands it to him, he's not interested. So that's generally sort of the case, isn't it, really? It has to be a party, it has to be a bit of a chase and a catch, isn't it? It's that whole...
And it has to be what the dog deems rewarding, not us.
Yeah. Have a look. Natalie, I hope you stopped hiding your beer. Is there a sniffy hobby or sport that works well alongside mantrailing? I quite like detection and scent work, to be fair. Only because I think it allows your dog to work scent appropriately, or to learn to work scent appropriately, because they're searching for an odor. If you were to speak to some people that were operational and that sort of stuff, they don't tend to like dogs doing multi stuff. But all my dogs...
but what they also say, like operational stuff, they do different exercises to what we do, because they do scent matching and other bits and bobs, don't they? So they won't do it as like, they wouldn't want an operational mantrailing dog doing scent work stuff, but equally they do other stuff in the background to help. And I think scent work is probably your best option. I've seen an improvement with your dogs, because you do both yours, from doing scent work in their like proximities and problem solving skills. Definitely problem solving skills massively, because the nose is and the brain's a muscle. The more you can use it, the better it will become. Might make it more efficient at hunting bunnies, but you know, there's swings and roundabouts to everything.
I think they work proximity better, because they learn to problem solve, and it's on a smaller scale. So then when they work the odor and work it to what I call source, so it's where the actual source is hidden, they then, I often find they work proximity of a human better, because they then realize that they've hit a big source of it and they need to get to the actual person.
Yeah, definitely. I have the example there. So Quill doesn't do scent work. He did scent work for a very, very short period of time. And he's pretty useless, as Kathryn will tell you, from hiding in a city centre and blindly walking around and around and around and around in a circle for ages until he went, "Oh my God, you're there!" My standard poodle did scent work and still does do scent work, and he is far better at proximity, far better, problem solving, working out and slowing himself down to work out, actually, it's good. Instead of blindly walking around and around in a circle, he will stop and go, it gets weaker there, stronger there, let's follow it stronger. Where Quill will just kind of a bit like Gundog quarter his way in to hopefully find what he wants to find.
Yeah, I like watching dogs that do both, and I always recommend it for dogs that are very visual. I think it works really well.
And the other
tracking,
a dog that's massively visual to do scent work.
Tracking, yeah.
Also,
sorry, Joleen, I think you cut out then, so apologies. I mean, Natasha spoke over you then. Carry on.
Also, it works quite well for Romanian rescue dogs.
Confident.
Yeah, so if you've got like a Spaniel type Romanian street dog, it's very applicable, or any Romanian street dog, but we see some Spaniel types come from abroad, which is quite interesting. But like Natasha just suggested, tracking, if you want your Spaniel to do less air scenting, more ground scenting, then definitely
slow
tracking.
down.
Yeah, and being able to read more subtle language because it's much steadier. But Spaniels are hard tracking because they don't see the point and it's well boring to them. And you need patience with tracking. You need to put some time and energy into it. You won't get it overnight, and they won't enjoy it overnight, but they will enjoy it. But it just takes a bit of time tracking. It's one thing I want to do this year is do a bit of tracking with my very, very mad spaniel, in order to. Oh, there you go. In order to help her steady on a bit.
Right, let me crack through this chat because we're getting more and more each time. Molly says, my new pup had her first hunter trials. First time she wasn't interested in the food, wanted a good fuss and a tug with her Santa toy. The week after she liked the food but has everything on offer. And that's, it's pretty much just letting your dog choose what they want. And you might find that dog wants to change each week and have something different. iPhone 8, sorry, it doesn't say your name, but they just said set a squirrel loose at the end and her boy would be so happy.
Yeah. I'd love to see that too.
Yeah.
What, with the handler still attached?
Yeah.
Squirrel, spaniel, and it's just blur.
Squirrel gate.
Moment with squirrel.
Yeah. Claire says, squish the pate to the bottom of the pot so licking lasts longer. Wally's reward is tailored to keep him calm. So we do the opposite of most, but it works. Bernie says, tried the calm this week. No, the clam, sorry, not the calm. Tried the clam this week and it was a big hit. Yeah, that works really well, especially if you're looking at pricing sequence and stuff. iPhone 8, again, I've got a rabbit fur tug, just wondering if my younger one would prefer that, as he adores to carry a fluffy toy. We could save it just for trailing. Yeah, and that's a really good thing. Like, build some, if you are using any kind of toy, I'm sure Kathryn and Natasha would say, but build some recognition and play with it outside of trailing first in all environments, and then add it into the trailing, and then keep it for that separate activity. Is how I would do it, really. Especially for toys and stuff. Claire says, Quill's cheese face is the most intrusive thing I've ever experienced. I think we need video footage. Claire's nodding.
Yeah, I've got there's some photos. There's some photos of his intense.
So Kat says, I use food for the trail layer to reward with, then when take harness off, he has his squeaky pheasant and play, and then carries it all the way to the car where he trades it for some food, and they only man trail. I've seen the team work, and they were on a session, and Dawn Heaton from Preston Trick Dogs just said that Kat rewards his dog in the best way. So he gets down with him once he's found, once Foggy's eating, Cat gets down on his knees beside the trail layer, and they have this nice, well done. Yeah, it's really great. It's really nice reward. Whereas I think sometimes we feel like we're in a rush to get to the end of our trail, but remember, that's the best bit for the dog. Like, if we've got it right, that's the best bit for the dog. I would say anyway. And we need to spend some time and invest in some time, and your instructor should understand that. Claire Davis says, one of mine started out as a search dog, but the person would have died of hypothermia as she ignored them and carried on searching. Her prey drive is huge, but only for the search, not for the reward. It's just the hunting and what we're working towards, isn't it? We're peaking all those adrenaline and all the rest of it. So then when they find something, it's like, yeah, well, that doesn't mean as much as this does. Another Claire says, part of Kez's reward is a cuddle or a scritch. Is it scritch from myself or Auntie Tash after his trail, and after cheese and hot dog.
Yum.
Yeah, he loves a good cuddle and a carry. I end up carrying him back to the car 90% of the time.
Bernie says she's got a golem as well, so it's obviously like River liking her Precious. She's going to let him keep his Precious back at the car as well. It's really interesting because I've actually done, because River's golemy with food and stuff, I've done really smaller pots. And normally I really go at people because their dogs can't get their mouth into the pots. But because River's really like funny with stuff, she takes a pot and she spends ages licking it. So her favourite thing probably in the world would be to have like the butter tub or the cream cheese empty tub and to take it off and enjoy it all by herself. So yeah, I'm trying smaller pots at the moment. I'll let you know, Bernie, if that works. Sarah says, wouldn't know what you were talking about. Jane says, thank you guys, excellent Zoom. Natalie says, mine's too fluffy to see his breathing. Yeah, I struggle with the breathing. Carly says, thank you ladies, very interesting, have to go. Kat says, I've noticed in the colder weather you can hear Foggy's breathing a lot better, plus night trailing again in the colder air. Yeah, sometimes you can hear a pop as well when the dogs are using that olfactory system, or taking it in through the mouth and they go like that. Emma says, methodical thinking spaniel. Yep, that's Theo. She got a methodical spaniel.
She's got the rare.
Wow, it's a unicorn.
Yeah.
Jenny says, so sorry, I have somebody at the door, so need to go. Thanks for the meeting, it was interesting, and some applies to her cairn terriers as too. Deborah says, I have a working clumber and a cocker, very, very different. Oh yes. The clumber is more methodical, the cocker very high energy and easily distracted. I love the clumbers to watch them work. They are such a nice breed to watch work.
Yeah. They are my retirement dog.
Yeah, I keep looking at them going, I want a spaniel, but I want just a little bit less spaniel in my spaniel.
Yeah. So in a few more years, when I want to slow down a little bit, it'll be a clumber.
So
yeah, but yours won't be slow, will it?
Yeah.
No, my luck. It'll also be the size of a Great Dane.
Jill and Kat have had to go and says thanks, it's really interested. Kath has said, I started gun dog training with my young cocker Luna, keeping her close, hunting, finding, retrieving tennis balls. I chose not to work her on game. I then also started agility training, and the reward for going on ahead of me was the tennis ball. I then added Mantrailing to our activity list, and the reward was food, fuss, and yep, you guessed it, a tennis ball. What I love about Mantrailing is how it differs to gun dog and agility, is that the dogs are in charge, follow the scent, and we follow them. I think this aspect is something gun dog handlers can struggle with initially when becoming Mantrailing, because they're used to controlling the dog. Sit, stop, heel, go, left, right, etc., etc.
Yeah, I find a lot of people struggle to relinquish the element of control. It's just like you have to just stand still, don't move, shut up, follow.
And we're coming to the last. So Barbara, Sarah and Jane have said it's been very interesting, but they've had to shoot off. And looking at the time, it's coming up to 8:45. So I think we could potentially look at wrapping it up.
Right,
Yes,
thank you
my
so
puppy has
much,
a
guys,
waiting.
for jumping on. We've really appreciated it. And thank you so much. We are going to stop recording and then just have a quick chat about some other Spaniel stuff, but I'm going to stop recording. If you don't want to talk about Spaniel events, then you're free to leave.
The only other thing I'd say is if you've got any other questions or anything, please reach out to any of us. I'm sure we'd all be happy to help you. We don't tend to go around pretending we know it all. We just want to try and get some more information out there, and if we can help, we will. And if we don't know, we'll all be happy to go, do you know what, I don't know that, but I'll find out somebody that who does.
Definitely.
So
thank you, guys.